call is now being recorded.
Okay, so we will start the lecture. So, good afternoon, all. So, in the last lecture, we have started with the one point, that is work study. Okay, so it is one of the important tools. So, in the last lecture, we had discussion about the various techniques which are used to increase the productivity. So, in that, the four techniques we have discussed in detail. That is, first one is your the techniques related to the judoka. So we have discussed about the judoka. It is one of the Japanese techniques which is used to increase the productivity. Then heijunka. Then that heijunka is also one of the technique, that is Japanese techniques, which is used to increase the productivity. All the two techniques are mostly related with the man-machine interface, and in order to avoid some defects, if any defects are observing in that particular techniques, so that defects cannot be detected or it cannot be accepted by this particular judoka. Similarly, whatever the heijunka technique is there, it is related to the minimum time. Whatever the losses are taking place, that losses we have to reduce, and whatever the time is required, that time we have to reduce. So that concept is also affects on the increasing the productivity. So that also we have discussed about the in the heijunka. Then kaizen is also one of the techniques which is used to increase the productivity. And what are the last techniques we have discussed, that is work study. So work study is also one of the important techniques which is used to increase the productivity. So in the yesterday's discussion, we have discussed about how this particular work study is furtherly divided into the two types. That is, the work study is furtherly divided into the two types. That is, first one is a method study, and second one is called as a work measurement. So what is meant by the method study? We have discussed. Method study means eliminate the unnecessary operations. So whatever the number of operations are present to perform the or to convert the raw material into the finished goods, during that process, some unnecessary operations are also present in that. And if we have to eliminate that unnecessary operations, we have to focus on the concept of the method study. That means to simplify the job and develop the more economical method. So whatever the job is given to you, whatever the manufacturing process is given to you, so we have to simplify that particular process, and we have to select the best method, or we have to select the new method for performing the operations. In addition to that, after the method study, the second step, it also plays very important role. Which one is that? Work measurement. So the simple meaning is there for the work measurement. That is, name itself suggests that work measurement means to determine the standard time for the operations. So in the method study, what we are doing, either we are developing the new process, or either we are doing the modification in the existing process. But even new process is developed, or even there is a modification we have done in the existing process, we have to go for the measurement of a standard time required to perform the operation. And that time we can measure by using the concept of work measurement. So in the yesterday's lecture also, we have discussed in detail what is the concept of the method study and what is the concept of the work measurement, and the combination of these both concepts, it is called as a work study. But whatever the work measurement is taking place, this is the second step which will be carried out after the concept of method study. Because if we have not done any modification in the existing process, if we have not developed any new method, then it is not possible to go for the measurement. If there is any modification, if there is a development of any new process, then and then only we have to go for the work measurement, means we have to go for the determination of standard time for performing the operations. And if this method study and the work measurement, if these both concepts are works in the properly manner, or if that both techniques we can apply in the industry, automatically your productivity can be increased. Therefore, from this particular diagram, we can easily say that the work study is furtherly divided into the two types, that is method study and the work measurement. The work measurement will be carried out after the concept of method study, and if this method study and work measurement, if these two concepts are applied in the industry, then automatically your productivity can be increased. Therefore, the work study is one of the important techniques which will be used to increase the productivity. Also, we have discussed about their importance, that is for the smooth production flow, to reduce the cost of the material, proper utilization of the scrap material, better working condition, or if I have to measure, or if I have to establish the standard time, at that time this work study concept, it plays very important role. And at the end, it also helps for the standardization, because if we have done any modification in the existing process, or if we have developed any new method, so for that particular new method we can go for the standardization. That means this is a standard method, and through this particular method we can perform the job, or we can convert the raw material into the finished good. That means standardization will be given to that particular product or to that particular process that we have discussed. Now in the today's lecture we will discuss about the important procedure, because if we have to apply the work study concept in the organization, then which steps we have to follow? Because we have discussed the work study is furtherly divided into the two types, that is method study and the work measurement. But if I have to do the modification in the existing process, or if I have to develop a new method, then what will be the procedure? Which steps I have to follow in the industry, due to which the modification is also taking place at that time, the measurement of standard time, it will also taking place. So whatever the figure is in front of you in the form of block diagram, in that it consists of a total 8 steps or the 8 procedures. So through this particular procedure, the work study concept or the work study technique can be implemented in the industry. Now the first one is a select. So in this particular select, or it is the first step in which we have to select the job, or either we have to select the process. In the select, or in the first step, either we have to select the job, or either we have to select the process which is to be studied. For example, if I will study the job, if I will select the job, at that time we can easily say that on which particular job we have to go for the modification, because sometimes what happens, we are manufacturing the job or we are manufacturing the products, but after some times it has been observed that that particular product, or for in that particular product we have to go for the changes. So what we have to do, first of all we have to select that particular job, and whatever the changes are required, that changes we have to identify. But for the identification of that particular changes, first of all we have to select that particular job in which we have to go for the modification, or either we have to select the process. That means in the first step, either we have to select the job, or either we have to select the process. Process means there are so many processes are available to convert the raw material into the finished goods. Okay, but which process I have to select? For the 10 manufacturing processes are with you. By using the 10 manufacturing process, we can manufacture the similar type of job. But if I have to go for the any modification in any existing process, so first of all, I have to select that particular process, or I have to select that particular job in which I have to go for the modification. In one of the job or in one of the process, if the modifications are not required, they need not required to select that particular job, or need not required to select that particular process, because that particular job, it is having the maximum utility, that particular job or that particular product, it is accepted by the customer, or that particular process, it is also works in the effective manner. So any modifications are not required. But some of the products are there, some of the processes are there in which we have to go for the modification. So for that particular modification, first of all we have to apply the first procedure, that is select, in which either we are selecting the jobs or either we are selecting the process. Then second one is a record. In the second step, what we have to do, we have to record all the details. We have to record all the details related to the recording techniques. So whatever the job we have selected, whatever the process we have to selected, so for that particular job, for that particular process, we have to carry out all their records, because that particular job is already used in any one of the application, or that particular manufacturing process is also used previously in some of the operations. So whatever their previous record is available with you, for example, one job or one product which is already manufactured, and that particular job and that particular product, it is having their old results. That old results can be recorded into the second step. Similarly, whatever the manufacturing process already available, initially we have used that particular manufacturing process in earlier product, but whatever their previous results are available, whatever their previous analysis is taking place, that analysis or that results can be recorded in this particular second step. That means first step is select the job or select the process. In the second step, we have to record or we have to identify the previous results of that particular job or of that particular product or the previous result of that particular manufacturing process which is selected for the further modification. Because if we have to go for the modification in the product, or if I have to go for the modification in the process, initially I have to focus on their previous results. If I have not focused on the previous results, it is not possible to go for the modification. So first of all, I have to check their previous results. I have to check their previous disadvantages, what are they happening, and then only furtherly I can go for the modification. Then examination. Third step is called as a examination. In that examination means, again, we have to conduct some of the tests on that particular product which is to be selected. Similarly, we have to conduct some of the tests on that particular process which will be selected for the modification. So in this particular third step, we have to ask some of the critical questions. We have to ask some of the critical questions to that particular job. It is not possible to ask the question to that particular job or the process, but just for the understanding, we have to raise some of the critical questions in the form of who, what, why, or why this particular process we have to manufacture, who is going to manufacture, so why this particular we have to go for the modification, who is going to modify that particular process, what are the reasons to modify that particular process. So such types of the critical questions, it will be asked in the third step. So the question will be asked for the product which will be selected in the first step. Similarly, some of the critical questions, it will be asked for the manufacturing process also, which is to be selected in the step number 1. That means through these particular questions, we can easily understand that why we have to go for the modification. Because if we are unable to identify that why we have to go for the modification, then it is not possible to carry out the modifications, because we are unable to examine that particular previous process. If we are unable to examine that particular product, then if we don't have any idea related to that particular product or related to that particular process, it is not possible to do the modifications. So in order to go for the modification or before the modification, we have to conduct the test. Means we have to ask some critical questions to that particular job or to that particular process in the form of who, why, who is going to modify, what is to be modified. Like that questions means examination will be carried out in the third step. And then fourth is called as a develop. Once the examination will be carried out, then we can easily identify that which modifications are required to do in that particular product, or which modifications are required in that particular manufacturing process. Therefore, in the third step, you will get the final results, that is, which type of modifications are required or which types of the changes we have to go in that particular job or in that particular product or in that particular process. And accordingly, we have to go for the modification. And in the fourth step, we have to develop the most economical method. That means whatever the unnecessary operations are present in the previous product or whatever the unnecessary operations are present in the previous manufacturing process, all that unnecessary operations can be eliminated in the third step, that is in the examination step or in the examine step. And after eliminating the unnecessary operations, we can develop your most economical method in the fourth step. Therefore, the fourth step or the fourth procedure is called as a develop. So in this particular fourth step, we can develop the most economical method. Now the new method is available with you, or whatever the existing process, in the existing process, whatever the modifications we have done, that modified process are available with you. Now we have to go for the next step, that is measure. Measure. Now from this particular measure, that is means from this particular fifth procedure, your second step is started, which is called as a work measurement. So from step number 1 to the step number 4, this concept is applicable for the method study, and from the step number 5 to the step number 8, the concept is applicable for the work measurement. Because whatever the unnecessary operations we have eliminated, we have eliminated that unnecessary operation up to the point 4. That means the new economical method we have developed, and now I have to measure the standard time required for the new economical method. Therefore, the fifth step is implemented as a measure. So in this particular measure, what we have to do? We have to measure the amount of work, or we have to measure the standard time required to perform the operation. So whatever the existing product we have selected, that product is taking the time of 10 hours. Or whatever the existing manufacturing process we have selected, that manufacturing process is also taking the time 10 hours. But I have to go for the modification, and after the modification, that means after eliminating the unnecessary operations, whatever the new method I have developed, that method requires only 9 hours, means 1 hour it will get reduced. So whatever the amount of standard time is required, that time can be measured in the step number 5, which is called as a measure. Then next step is the sixth step as a define. After calculation of standard time, whatever the new method we have developed, we have to define that particular new method. Maybe this particular step, it can be carried out by the management, or sometimes it will be carried out by the supervisor. So if the supervisor has carried out this particular process, so that supervisor has to define that particular new method in front of management, or sometimes we have to define that particular method, or we have to introduce that particular new method to the workers also, because workers, operators are the main source, those who are working on that particular jobs, or those who are working on that particular processes. Therefore, after measuring the standard time, or after the fifth number step, measurement, we have to define that particular method in front of management, means which type of modifications we have done, that terms we have, or that particular concept we have to explain to the management. Similarly, whatever the new method is developed, that new method we have to introduce to the workers also. So this is the sixth step, that is define. And the seventh step is called as a install. Once the detailed explanation is given to the management, or if the explanation is given to the workers, and if the management will give the green signal, that is green signal about now you can implement this particular new technique for the further manufacturing. That means we have to install the new method for your further manufacturing processes. Once the method is defined to the management as well as workers, at that time that management will give the green signal about implementation of the new process for the operations. So in the seventh step, what we will do, we can install that particular new method in the further manufacturing processes. So whatever the training is given to the workers or the operators, according to that particular trainings, that workers or that operators will implement the new technique. That workers or operators can implement the new techniques for the manufacturing of the product. So the seventh step is called as a installation of the new technique for the further manufacturing processes. And the next step, that is eighth step, is called as a maintain. Once that particular process, new process, if it is implemented in the industry, we have to maintain that particular process in the constant way. Therefore, you can get the maximum output in the minimum number of input resources. If you will maintain that particular output in constant way, then we can say that our productivity of the organization can be increases. So these are the 8 steps which we have to follow, or this is the detailed procedure of the work study which will be implemented in the industry. Therefore, I have said that is work study is furtherly divided into the 2 types, that is method study. So from step number 1 to the step number 4, the method study concept can be applicable. That means we have eliminated the unnecessary operations. And from the step number 5 to the step number 8, we have to measure the standard time. And that concept is called as a work measurement. That means whatever the new method we have developed, so for that particular new method, we have to determine the standard time. And the concept of work measurement is having the same concept, that is to measure the standard time required for the, or required to perform the operations. So this is the detailed process or detailed procedure of the work study which will be implemented in the industry in order to increase the productivity, because work study is one of the major tool, or it is one of the important tool which is implemented in the industry for the increasing in the productivity. And to increase that particular productivity, we have to follow this particular 8 steps. If I will follow this particular 8 steps in the form of method study and in the form of work measurement, automatically your output can be increased. And if the output is increases, output is directly proportional to the productivity. Therefore, the productivity can be also increases. So these are the 4 steps which we have to follow in the concept of work study. Now, next point is related to the work study with work simplification.
work study with work simplification. So wherever we are applying the concept of work study in the industry, along with that particular work study, if we will apply the concept of work simplification, because what happens sometimes, to increase the output, we are increasing the technology. To increasing the output, we are increasing the technology, or we are introducing the new technologies in order to increase the output. But while introducing that particular new technology in the industry, while while including that particular new technology in the industry, sometimes your processes are becomes more and more complex. If full automation is provided in the industry, sometimes that full automation, it also creates the problems, or it also creates some of the major drawbacks during the manufacturing processes. Therefore, wherever the automation is required, wherever it is required to introduce the new techniques, at that locations or at that point only, we have to go for the introducing the new techniques. If in one of the operation, in one of the techniques, if the automation is not required, introduction of the new technologies are not required, you cannot implement that particular technique. So if unnecessary, if I will introducing new technologies again and again in the industry, so your method or your operation becomes more and more complex. Therefore, in order to avoid the such types of the difficulties, that work simplification along with work study, it is also implemented in the industry. So in that work simplification, before applying the concept of work simplification, what we have to do, we have to go for the detailed investigation of the process. Work study, we are implementing the work study, means what we are doing, we are doing the modification in the existing processes. But before application of that particular work simplifications, what we have to do, we have to go for the detailed investigation of that particular process, or detailed investigation of that particular existing process, break that particular process into number of elements. So for example, one process, it contains the 10 operations. So break that particular process in the 10 operations, operation number 1, operation number 2, operation number 3, operation number 4, like that up to the operation number 10. And detailed analysis of each and every operations we have to carry out. And from that, we have to eliminate the unnecessary operations, as well as we have to eliminate the unnecessary time. And afterwards, if your system becomes more simple, then and then only we can implement that particular work simplification along with the work study. Therefore, work simplification, it will be starts with the detailed analysis of that particular product. Once your process is ready, once your product is ready, again, if I will implement that particular work simplification along with work study, it will start with, that work simplification will start with the detailed analysis of products. So through this particular detailed analysis, whatever the operations we are performing, that operations we can perform very easily without any wastage or without elimination of the any modifications. So if I will implement the work study in the industry, or if I will implement any modified process in the industry, no problem. That particular modified process can work in the effective manner. But along with that particular work study, if I will apply the concept of work simplification, so whatever the new method we have developed, or whatever the modifications we have done in the existing process, so for that particular new process or for that particular existing process, this work simplification, once again it will carry the detailed analysis. That in work simplification, once again, that concept will carry out the detailed analysis of that particular product or for that particular process, due to which whatever the operations we can performing, that operations we can easily perform. Whatever the wastage is taking place, that wastage also it can be eliminated. Therefore, the work simplification along with the work study, it also plays very powerful, or it is also plays very important role for increasing the productivity. Therefore, as we know that, or again and again we are discussing that production process, it is one of the coordination of man, machine, material, and introducing the new technology. Just now we have discussed, it is a coordination of man, machine, and material. But introducing the new technologies, it will make more and more complex. So process management is the success of the product. Identify the key process and the process parameters. So in the work simplifications, what we have to do, identify the key processes or the process parameters. So whatever the processes are important, through which we can go for the modification. Only we have to focus on that particular processes only. Whatever the unnecessary processes are there, that processes we can eliminate. Therefore, here I have written the second last line. The word simplification start with the analysis of product and evaluation, which changes the process in such a way that by reducing the wastage, elimination of non-value adding operations and the modifications. So whatever the unnecessary operations are taking place, whatever the non-value adding operations are taking place, whatever the unnecessary modifications we are doing, that all this particular concept can be eliminated by implementing the concept of the work simplification. So if I will implement the concept of work study in industry along with work simplification, then that tool, the concept of work study or that work study tool, again it becomes more and more powerful in order to increase the productivity. So this is the basic concept behind the work simplification, which will be implemented along with the work study concept. If I have to define that particular work simplification in single line, so in order to avoid your process more and more complex due to the continuous modification or due to the continuous implementation of the new techniques, so that concepts or that particular processes, it can be eliminated through this particular work simplification techniques. Therefore, along with work study, we have to implement the concept of work simplification in the industry in order to avoid your process more complex, in order to avoid your product more complex, in order to eliminate the non-value adding operations. Whatever the unnecessary operations are taking place, that unnecessary operations also we can eliminate through this work simplification. And in addition to that, whatever the unnecessary modifications we are doing, whatever the unnecessary modifications are doing, that unnecessary modifications also can be eliminated through this particular work simplification. Work study, it also plays very important role, no problem. But along with work study, if I will make that particular work more simplified, then again that work study becomes more and more powerful tool to increase the productivity. So this is the important role of the work simplification along with the work study. Now, the next one is the human considerations in the work study. So this will be the last point of this particular chapter, human considerations in the work study. So in the industry, as we know that in order to increase the productivity, we have to keep the proper relation between the management, supervisor and the worker, because these are the three input resources and these are the three important input resources. If these three resources are worked together in the effective manner, then and then only we can increase the productivity. Therefore, in the concept of work study, that human considerations are very important. That is, what is the role of management in the work study? What is the role of the supervisor in the work study? What is the role of the workers in the work study? Therefore, these human considerations in the work study, it also implemented along with this particular concept of the work study. Therefore, the work study is one of the powerful tools to improve the productivity by keeping the relation between the management, supervisors and the workers. And after that, these human considerations can be divided into the two types. So here at the bottom I have written work study and the management. That means what is the role of management in the concept of work study. Second, work study and the supervisor means what is the role of the supervisor in the work study. And third one is a work study and the workers. So what is the role of that particular workers in the work study, that we have to discuss. So human considerations means, as I have told you, that is, human consideration means the relation between management, supervisors and the workers, or the proper integration between management, supervisors and the workers. Like that, the man, machine, material, if these are the three input resources, similarly the management, supervisor and the workers, it also plays important role in the concept of work study. So if you will think about the first one, that is work study and the management, only management is not plays very important role while implementing the concept in the work study, because we have to provide the proper relation between the supervisors and the workers. Because if the management will give the additional things or if that management will give the maximum benefit to the supervisors and the workers, then and then only that supervisors and the workers can be worked in the effective manner. Otherwise, only focusing on your output without focusing on the supervisors and the workers, it is not possible to increase the productivity. Therefore, whatever the managements are there, whatever the higher authorities are there, that higher authorities has to provide the proper relation between the supervisors and the workers. So whatever the additional benefits are there as far as the workers development point of view, for example, if any new machines are purchasing by that particular management, so it is the responsibility of that particular management where they have to introduce that particular new technology to the supervisors. They have to introduce their new technology to the workers. Therefore, that workers, supervisors, they can also understand that particular new techniques and they can work in the effective manner. In addition to that, that management has to provide some maximum benefits in the form of incentives. If any worker is doing the job, maybe in the effective manner, or if he is doing the overtime, so for that particular overtime he has to provide the additional charges to them. In addition to that, whatever the working hours are there, if 8 hours are given, then that worker has to work only 8 hours. If management will be forced to that particular workers to work for the 10 hours, 15 hours, at that time that workers cannot be worked in the effective manner. Therefore, along with this particular work study concept, the role of the management, that is role of the human considerations in the form of management, it also plays very, very important role. Therefore, the first concept is related to the work study and the management. Then second one is a work study and the supervisor. Similar to the management, that supervisor is also plays very, very important role, because what happens sometimes the supervisor is one of the important, it plays very important role in between the managements and the workers. Some of the supervisors, they are taking the care of the workers, they are introducing the new workers towards the management, so the managements can give the additional wages, additional incentive schemes to the workers. But some supervisors, they are not focusing on the workers, they are only focusing on the output, but they are not focusing on the workers' safety. So at that time also, that workers cannot be worked in the effective manner. In order to avoid such types of the difficulties, we have to provide the proper relations between the supervisors and the workers also. If the supervisor has done any modification in the existing process, it is not possible to implement that particular process directly. So that supervisor has to give the training. That supervisor has to introduce this particular new technique in front of the management. If the management will give the green signal, if it is accessible for the organization, then and then only implementation of the new technique is possible. Otherwise, the implementations of the new technique will not be possible. In addition to that, that supervisor, if the management will give the green signal that you can implement this particular technique, before implementation, supervisor has to conduct the trainings. Supervisor has to give all the important information about the new techniques, so that workers can also easily understand that which type of modifications are taking place. We have to, due to which they can work on that particular new method or new particular process in the effective manner. Therefore, the relation between the work study and the supervisors, it also plays very, very important role. And the last point, that is we are discussing about the work study and the workers. In addition to the management and the supervisors, we have to focus on the workers also, because workers is one of the important resource which will be converted into the raw material, into the finished goods through the transformation process. Workers are not working as a cell. They are operating the machines. So if that workers are not operating the machines in the proper way, if they are not happy to work in the effective manner, at that time automatically the effect of that particular workers, it is also taking place on the total output. Or due to workers are not effective in the effective manner, maybe your production cost will be increases, maybe the maximum elimination will be taking place, maybe that machine is comes under the maintenance again and again. Maybe there may be possibility of breakage of that particular tools again and again. So such types of the situations are happening in the industry if the workers are not worked in the effective manner. Then why workers are not doing the works in the effective manner? Because there is no any relation between the supervisor and worker. There is no any relation between the workers and the management. So if we will maintain the proper relations between the management, supervisors and the workers, then all the three resources, all the management, all the supervisors and all the workers, maybe skilled operators, unskilled operators, they can work in the effective manner. If all these three parameters are worked in the effective manner along with the concept of work study, then automatically your productivity can be increased. Because the concept of work study, it is not possible to implement in the industry without presence of management, supervisors and the workers. Because whatever the modifications we are doing in the existing process, that modification can be taking place through supervisors or the workers. Whatever the new method, whatever the new products we are developing, that new method or new product development, it is also not taking place without supervisors and the workers. Therefore, the role of the supervisors and the workers, it plays very important role, and to maintain them in the effective manner, the management plays very important role. So we have to keep the proper relations between the management, supervisors and the workers. So all these particular three parameters, that is management, supervisors and workers, they can work in the effective manner, due to which your output can be increased, and if your output is increased, automatically your productivity is also increases. Therefore, this human considerations, it also plays very important role in the work study. It is similar to the previous one, that is work simplification. Just now we have explained the work simplification is also plays very important role in order to avoid your complex systems, in order to avoid or in order to eliminating the non-value adding operations, in order to avoid the non-value adding modifications. Similar to that, this human considerations, it also plays very, very important role in the concept of the work study. So this is about the concepts of the work study, in which that work simplifications and the human considerations, it plays very, very important role to increase the productivity. So this is about the concept of the methods of work study which we have discussed. That is, in the work study, it is divided into the two types, method study and the work measurement. Their definitions we have discussed, what is meant by the method study, what is meant by the work measurement. Then how this particular method study and work measurement, it plays very important role in order to increase the higher productivity. Then their importance also we have discussed in the yesterday's lecture, as well as we have discussed today also. Then this is the important procedures or important steps which we have to carry out in the industry while implementing the work study in the procedure. So while implementing these particular procedures, we have to apply the concept of work simplification, and we have to apply the concept of human considerations in this particular 8 procedures. If there is no role of management, if there is no role of supervisor, if there is no role of the workers in this particular process, it is not possible to modify the process. It is not possible to develop the new method. It is not possible to modify the existing processes. Therefore, this human considerations along with work simplification, it also plays very, very important role in the concept of the work study. So this will be the last point of this particular chapter. So with this particular point, we have finished the chapter number 1. So whatever the theoretical part is required. So in this particular chapter, we have started with the basic introduction of the industrial engineering. So we have discussed about what is meant by the industrial engineering, what is the role of industrial engineer, and the role of this particular subject in the industry that we have discussed. Then also we have discussed about the major contributions of the F.W. Taylor. Whatever the two scientists are there, F.W. Taylor and the Gilbert, they have contributed or they have developed the new techniques which will be implemented in the industry for this particular subjects. Then we have discussed about the productivity. What is meant by the productivity? How the productivity can be measured, that is productivity is equal to output upon input. Then what is the basic difference between the production and the productivity? Then we have discussed about the various factors, internal factors, controllable factors, external factors, uncontrollable factors. That also we have discussed in the yesterday's lecture. In addition to that, some major components also we have discussed, and then we will discuss about the work study procedure, how it will be implemented in the industry along with the work simplifications and the work study. So with this, we have finished the theoretical part of this particular chapter. Now we have to see some of the numericals. We have to see some of the numericals based on the productivity. So we'll discuss about the two numericals, how the productivity can be calculated. So before that, once again, we will review some of the basic things related to the productivity. Okay. So we know that the productivity is equal to output upon input. The productivity is equal to output upon input. Input can be available in the number of terms. Input is available in the form of material, then machine, then man, then knowledge, then amount of energy or any additional equipments or which is to be required. It will be considered in the input parameters. But there is only one output in the form of finished product or in the form of finished goods. So if I will give the number of inputs, then you will get the one output. And if your output is maximum in minimum number of inputs, then and then only your productivity can be increased. If I have to increase the output, to increase that particular output, if I will increase the input also, in order to increase the output, if I will increase the number of inputs, your productivity can be increased. But we cannot say that your output can be increased, but we cannot say that the productivity will be increased, because when we can say that the productivity can be increased in minimum number of inputs, if your output is maximum, then and then only I can say that the productivity can be increased. Therefore, please keep in mind one basic formula for the productivity, which is equal to productivity is equal to output upon input. This is the basic formula. Then in addition to that, what is meant by the partial productivity? Yesterday we have discussed. Partial productivity means in order to achieve the one output, there are so many input parameters are there. In order to achieve one output, there are so many input parameters are there, and if I have to calculate the productivity of each and every input, so that productivity is called as a partial productivity. So we are having the formula partial productivity is equal to total output upon individual input. Individual input means there are so many input parameters are there: labor, machine, capital investment, energy, knowledge, equipment. So many input parameters means it represents the individual output. For example, if I have to calculate the labor productivity, here formula is represented. Labor productivity is equal to total output upon labor input. So that concept is called as a partial productivity. Total productivity is equal to total output upon total input, but partial productivity is equal to total output upon individual input. That means so many input parameters are there. Out of that, first one I have selected, labor productivity is equal to total output upon labor input. Now labor input can be measured in the form of number of hours. How much hours that laborers can work, that will be considered as a labor input. Similarly, other input parameters are also there. For example, capital productivity. Capital productivity is called as a partial productivity. That is, capital productivity is equal to total output upon individual input. Now, which will individual input is there? Capital. Therefore, capital productivity is equal to total output upon capital input. Similarly, material productivity. Material is also one of the important input parameters. If I have to calculate the total productivity of that particular material, which is called as a partial productivity. Therefore, partial productivity is equal to material productivity is equal to total output upon individual input. Now, which input I have considered? Material. Therefore, total output upon material input. Similarly, energy productivity. Energy is also one of the important input parameter. So if I have to calculate its productivity, therefore energy productivity is equal to total output upon energy input. So all these particular productivities are called as a partial productivity, which will be calculated from each and every input parameters. And we are having the standard formula of productivity, which is equal to output upon input. Okay, this is the one factor, partial productivity, and at the end we have to focus on the total factor productivity, TFP. So whatever the formula is there, total factor productivity, which is equal to total factor productivity is equal to net output upon labor plus capital input. If I have to calculate the total productivity, so total productivity is equal to total output upon total input. This is the basic formula. That means all inputs we are considering: labor input, material input, energy input, capital input. All these particular inputs can be considered while calculating the total productivity. But here I am calculating only total factor productivity, which is equal to net output, not total output. There is a difference between the net output and the total output. So total factor productivity is equal to net output upon labor plus capital input. So whatever the number of input parameters are there, out of that number of input parameters, this labor and capital input, it plays very important role. Sometimes labor productivity can be increases, but capital productivity can be decreases. कशामुळे लेबर प्रोडक्टिव्हिटी वाढते? तर स्किल्ड ऑपरेटर जर तुम्हाला वापरायचे असतील तर तुम्हाला त्याला मॅक्सिमम सॅलरी द्यावी लागेल. मॅक्सिमम सॅलरी द्यावी लागते म्हणजे तुमचं काय झालं, तुमची कॅपिटल इन्व्हेस्टमेंट काय झाली, वाढली. म्हणजे एका बाजूला लेबर प्रोडक्टिव्हिटी वाढली म्हणजे स्किल्ड ऑपरेटर आपल्याला मिळाले. बट ॲट अनदर साइड, to that skilled operator we have to give the maximum salary, means your investment is increases in the form of capital. That means your labor productivity is increases at one side, but at another side your capital input can be decreased. Therefore please keep in mind, or you can note down this particular formula, that is total factor productivity is equal to net output upon labor plus capital input, and total productivity is equal to total output upon total input. So this is the basic difference between the total productivity and total factor productivity, and based on this we have to solve the numericals. So this is the case number 1. So we will discuss about the first numerical. So what that particular case number 1 tells, that is Shalini was busy going through the production and machine hours consumption report past 3 months. So Shalini he is going through one production and machine hours in the last 3 months. So if you go through this particular table, the first column represents the month September, October, November. The second column represents the input parameter, that is machine hours, how much amount of that machine is worked. So here in the September 90,000 hours machine has been worked, in October 1 lakh, and in the November 1,50,000. That means for the 3 months, in the September 90, again it will be increases from 90 to 1 lakh, and in the November it is increases from 1 lakh to the 50,000. And according to that input parameters, what will be the output in the September, October and the November? So in the September, input hours are 90, and accordingly number of units or outputs can be measured as a 99,000. That means your output is increased. In the October, input is given as 1 lakh, same output will become that is 1 lakh. In the November, your input is 1,50,000. That means input is increased from the October month, but in the November, input is given as a 1,50,000, but output is very less, that is 1,35,000. That means in each and every month, whatever the inputs are given in the form of machine hours, according to that particular inputs, the output is also measured. And we have to do, and what we have to calculate, you can see the report clearly show that there had been increasing production with simultaneous increasing machine hour consumption. There is a increasing production is increases, but in order to increase that particular production, the machine hours are also increases. For example, in the September, your output is 99,000 and your input is 90,000. In November, your output is increases from 99,000 to 1,35,000. You can see the difference between September and the November. Output is increases from 99,000 to 1,35,000. But in order to increase that particular output, the machine hours are also increased from 90,000 to 1,50,000. That means if I have to increase the output, the input is also going to increase. the Shalini was not sure whether it is really indicated the rise of productivity or really increasing the production. How should we get the answer from this particular this? So the output is increases. In order to increase that particular output, the inputs resources are also increases. Means number of hours of that particular machines are also increases in order to increase the output. But that particular Shalini is unaware about whether your productivity is increased or not. That we have to check. So we have to calculate the productivity of each and every month. So for each month we are having the total output. For each month we are having the total input parameters. So if I will use the formula, the productivity per machine hour. If I will use the formula, the productivity per machine hour is equal to production unit divided by machine hour. So that means if I have to calculate the productivity of each and every month, we are having the total productivity is equal to total output upon total input. So if I will implement this particular formula for the September, so productivity of September is equal to total output kite in the form of September 99,000, input 90,000. So your productivity is equal to 1.1. That means it will be increases. 100% your output is achieved. In the month of October, productivity of October is equal to total output upon total input. Total output is 1 lakh. Total input is 1 lakh. That means there is no any increase in productivity. And in the month of November, the total output upon total input, your total output is very less as compared to the total input. So output is 1,35,000, but input is 1,50,000. Means your input is more as compared to the total output. Therefore, your productivity can be decreases. And finally, that answers can be represented in the tabular form. That is in the month of September, input parameters, output parameters, their productivity is 1.1. In the October, productivity is only 1. That means there is no any increase in productivity, there is no any decrease in productivity. But in the month of November, as input is more as compared to the output, so your productivity can be decreases. And from this particular statement, I can say that we can see from the above table that while production is rises from September to November, but productivity is falling. The production is increased from 99,000 to 1,35,000. I am repeating, the production is increased from 99,000 to 1,35,000, but at the same time, the productivity is goes on decreasing. Therefore, we have discussed in the last lecture, the concept of production and the concept of productivity, they are not correlated with each other. Production is increases means we cannot say that your productivity is increases. So at one side, production is increases, but at another side, the productivity can be decreases. And we can understood that particular concept for this particular example, in which we can say that your output is increases from 99,000 to 1,35,000. That means at one side, production is increases. But if we compare or if we think about their productivity, in the September, your productivity is 1.1. In October, productivity is 1.0. And in November, your productivity is 0.9. That means at one side, the production is increased, but at another side, the productivity is falling or the productivity is decreases. So through this particular example, we can say that the production and the productivity, these concepts are not correlated with each other. In some of the examples, production is increases as well as productivity is also increases. But in some of the examples, at one side production is increases, but at another side productivity can be decreases. Why here productivity is decreases? Because in the month of November, your input is more as compared to the output. If your input is less as compared to the output, then we can say that your productivity is maximum in the last month also. Means we can say that production is increases as well as the productivity is also increases. But here input is very high and output is very less. Therefore, your productivity is decreases. Therefore, through this particular examples, I can say that, or I can repeat once again, your production of that particular machine is increases from 99,000 to 1,35,000, but at the same time, the productivity is falling or the productivity decreases. So through this particular example, we can conclude that the production is not depends on the productivity, or the productivity is not depends on the production. Sometimes the productivity is increases with increasing production, but sometimes the productivity is decreases with increasing production because input parameters are increased. So this is about the first example we have discussed related in order to understand the basic difference between the production and the productivity. So one more example is there, but still time is not there. So we'll discuss that particular next example in the next lecture.